All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DFS Army's tournament strategy show, where we look at last night's slate, see how that went, and then we focus on this nice two-gamer. Such a nice, calm relief after all the craziness yesterday. Um, but yeah, let's jump right into it. Let's look at yesterday. So yesterday was all right. It was okay. There was some good and there was some really bad. I think it definitely could have been better, but we'll take it. This was the $100,000 winning lineup on the left here. You see Maxi in it, a little bit of a surprise. Not gonna lie, didn't foresee that one coming. But we did look at the sim model yesterday on the pre-lock show, and we did emphasize that the sim model did like Tyrese Maxey. Definitely should have followed it on that one. Sim model also liked Jordan Clarkson yesterday, so once again, Sim model knows a lot. We did like this Utah Indy game, and so that wasn't a surprise. We talked about on this show how Clarkson was a decent tournament play as well, so I think all that made sense. Gordon Hayward was a core play. Kyle Kuzma, everyone and their mom played, so glad we were right about that, but it wasn't really something that was too shocking. Nurkic was not on him at all. Didn't foresee that one coming. This is where yesterday just got a little weird from this point on. And it's not one of those spots I'm gonna read too far into it, honestly. There's just some weird things that happened. But Nurkic crushed, and so that was good to see. Malik Beasley made this lineup 23 points. Aldama also made it 28 fantasy points. Royce O'Neal also slid his way into the 100K line too. So honestly, there was some good, there was some bad. Hawkins, but we'll live to see another day. I do want to shout out DFS Accountant, another good 4K win. So close to taking it down too. I'm sorry, man. Some of these plays I was on too. George made sense. Hawkins was freaking awful. I think everyone's kind of tired of him. Uh, I don't have a great philosophy for what I'm going to do for him moving forward. My gut's just like, if he's chalky, I'm not going to play him. If no one's playing him, I'll play him. But one thing that does make me not as concerned as a lot of people might be, and it's something that we talked a lot about yesterday, is that this Timberwolves team is a good defense. And so it doesn't shock me that Hawkins and Ingram, too, had awful games, even though we were on them because they were cheap and we liked their usage rate with the guys that the Pelicans had out. Kuzma made sense. Robinson, Ball was a core play. Grant got in there, nice play there, and Sasser. So just awesome play all around. And then my guy Jay Killa had some awesome ROI. $1,200 made with 200 in. Congrats to you, man. So all in all, really like solid slate yesterday. Solid slate. Definitely could have been better if like the Ingram plays and things like that worked out, but we'll see. Thomas, I hear you, man. I hear you. No more Hawkins, but I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna keep taking shots. I'm just going to. Carl, good to see you, man. BMAC, you're cheating. Of course yeah. We'll get there. We'll talk about it. Let's dig into this 2-game slate. It's probably one of my favorite 2-game slates of the season, which isn't saying much. I think in this slate we have 2 high total games, nice close spreads. Of course, that doesn't mean the games will actually stay close, as we see all the time in the NBA. But I'm liking it. I'm liking it. What's up, Mr. Five? Good to see you, man. And I think on this slate, there's some obvious chalk and there's some decent pivots too, which we can definitely talk about early and often. And also not too much injury news either, which is good to see. And hopefully it stays that way. Starting off for the Bucks, I think we have to talk about how this is a back-to-back for them. But when it comes to their most important player, Giannis, he basically had a break last night because of that god-awful call. No need to revisit or rehash it, but it does make me feel much more confident about playing Giannis tonight in a really nice spot against this Pacers team. From an ownership standpoint, it does look like Giannis will be pretty chalky, but I am planning on being significantly over that. There's a little bit of a narrative going on here, but I do feel like he's going to come out with a vengeance tonight. But even taking that out of consideration, awesome matchup, awesome pace. Love the spot for him as long as he doesn't get ejected for mean mugging again. Pricing is kind of tough on this slate, but not really. I mean, for me as an MME player, I really like to make sure that I am going over on the guys I like, and then I kind of let the DS do a lot of the harder work of picking between some of these plays. But I do have some opinions to make sure that it at least follows my thought process to some extent. Damian Lillard is one of those guys. He's 9,500, hasn't had the explosive awakening I think a lot of us were hoping he would have on this team. But 9,500, this is a nice spot for him in a good matchup. So Damian Lillard has a very, very, very high chance of being a leverage play for me on this slate. We'll see by the time we get to the pre-lock show, which will probably be at like 4, a little bit earlier today. Very high likelihood he'll be on there. Chris Middleton, I can't get to today, guys. He's just not playing enough for his price tag. I don't really understand why he's still so expensive, to be honest with you, especially on a 2-game slate. I mean, I guess there's a chance maybe he'll see more minutes, but really he's seeing around that 20-22 minute range. And you would need for him to be extremely efficient for him to get there. He's low owned, but he's low owned for an extremely good reason. Of course, he can get hot, and if he hits all of his shots or something, he can still get there, but no, that's not going to be me today. Mega Royal, good to see you, man. No Hawkins, no ramen noodles. I hear you. Mr. 5 said, loading guard still against them. Yeah, it's weird for the Bucks. In my mind, because we've been picking on them so much from a defense, from like an offensive standpoint, and playing teams against them, I felt like the Bucks were bad, but they're actually doing pretty well, like solid record. But in general, yeah, we're playing guards against them today. Let's see. So I'm not playing Chris Middleton. Brook Lopez, I think, could be a sneaky leverage play against this Pacers team that we can really play whoever we want against. He's someone that I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about, and the center position is on this slate in particular. There's a ton of options, and no one's really standing out too clearly. So I do like to consider taking some shots on Brook today. We'll of course see if I'm still feeling the same way by the time we get to lock, but I think this is a really good spot for him. Outside of that, below Brook Lopez, this is where I want a good mix. Bobby Portis is a little bit surprisingly low owned in this spot. We have a decent amount of forwards on this slate we can play, so I understand the mix, but kind of shockingly low there. Jay Crowder as well. He was super chalk on a 14-game slate. He is more expensive, and he's similar in price to some of the other forwards on this slate, but he's playing those minutes, man. He did play a crap ton yesterday, so it wouldn't shock me if he plays a little bit less today, but again, really good matchup, and so he's another guy I want to make sure I don't lose in the mix on this 2-gamer because there's so many forward options available. Let's see. Appreciate you, Senzi. You're a goat, man. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Malik Beasley, he hit the nuts last night. I don't really foresee trying to chase that. So I don't expect to have a lot of exposure to him. Beauchamp, Marjan, 3,300 forward and guard eligible. You're never going to feel good about a guy who doesn't play a ton of minutes. But he does at least get out there, and he's so cheap. I'm okay having some exposure to him on this slate and probably ending up being over the field on him just due to his price tag. But again, he's one of those guys you don't want more than like 30% exposure to. He makes a lot work on this slate, but he can also ruin your slate by doing absolutely nothing. So I'll have exposure to him, but I'm not planning on getting too cute with it. I hear you, Dixon. I hear you. There definitely has been a strange trend around boosts lately. I hear you though. Definitely worth thinking about. So yeah, I like this team and I like this game. Long story short, and I plan on being over to Giannis, over on Damian Lillard, and over on Brook Lopez is my true like gut plays for the Bucks. And then for the Pacers, another team I like a lot, but a little bit less. than just liking pretty much all of the Bucks. For me, it's Tyrese Halliburton here. He was god awful yesterday, which was very disappointing. But he's still doing everything for this team, and he gets the fantastic get right spot against the Bucks. We've been picking on the Bucks via the guards for a while now, and it's been going pretty well. And I plan on going right back to that with Hallie. Ideally, he will start being a little bit more aggressive and scoring today, unlike he did yesterday, which was frustrating. But I love this spot for him, so more than happy to go back here. I do wish he was a little bit lower owned. That would make me feel a little bit better about it, but beggars can't be choosers. The rest of these guys don't love, to be honest with you. I'll have pieces of Miles Turner. I'll have a little bit of Bruce Brown. Benedict Mathurin, he makes a lot work. That's why you're seeing some ownership. Jalen Smith and Obi Toppin, those are two guys that I will. I'll be around field weight on Jalen Smith just because, again, he makes a lot work. He's been in good form, good points per minute player, all the good stuff you're looking for. But I think Obi Toppin's a solid pivot. And so just in some of my early runs, I was around field weight on Jalen Smith, which I was fine with. And then I was over the field on Obi Toppin, which was pretty much how I wanted my lines to work because I am planning on going over on some of these guys who I think are in really good spots like Halliburton and Giannis, who everyone will like today, but I want to like them even more is my strategy on two gamers. Anyone else worth talking about? Again, like I'm not going to X anyone out of my player pool. It's just the way I do things. I'm not going to X them. So I do want a good mix and I want the DS to kind of do its thing. But like I said, going to prioritize Tyrese Halliburton here. Miles Turner's been in good form, but I don't like the matchup against the Bucks, so I'm not going crazy on him. Other center plays I like a bit more. Courtney, perfect timing. Trae Young, we're looking at the Hawks right now. Yeah, I mean, Trae is the epitome of being scoring dependent. It's kind of why I'm not as excited about him alongside the high ownership. He's one of those guys who can always get hot and break a slate. But at that ownership, I am planning on being under the field on Trae today. And I'm going to have to live with that. Got to pick your poisons on two gamers. Scott, what's up, man? Long time no see. I appreciate you, man. And I agree. We definitely give a lot of great info out there here at DFS Army. For those of you that are not aware, Scott is one of our coaches. He covers a lot of sports. He's also had a lot of really big wins too. So definitely check us out here at DFS Army. Click the link in the description and you'll be able to be more involved. BMAX said, I would feel more safe with Murray, who has the same upside and 1,200 cheaper. Exactly. We are on the same thought path right now. DeJounte Murray, I don't know. Actually, I'm pretty sure just because I've been running lines, unless we get some news on the Magic side of things that might create some value. I don't think Murray's going to be able to be a leverage play for me, but I do plan on being around field weight exposure on him for the exact reasons you mentioned. Similar upside, but cheaper. And for some reason, less owned. Hey, I'm not going to question it. I'm just hoping that stays the case. Good stuff. Kaboom. What's up, man? Wagwan. Oh, man. But yeah, I'm glad you're back on track, man. Yeah, Courtney, he does get assists, but for him to exceed value, he needs the points. Like he's usually not going to get there by getting a triple-double or even a double-double most slates. It's usually pure scoring with a couple of assists. Kenneth said, I like Giannis and Brook Lopez pairing tonight. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that as well. Good starting point. You have like the chalky Giannis, who's in a fantastic spot, and Brook Lopez is kind of like your lower owned GPP play. So yeah, good starting point. Outside of DeJounte Murray over Trae Young, I'm really just kind of, like I said, letting the DS do its thing. I'm naturally getting exposure to Jalen Johnson. I'm slightly under on Clint Capella, but I'm still close to field weight, so I don't feel like I need to adjust that, at least at this point. DeAndre Hunter is fine. Don't love this spot for him. I like some of the other forwards on this slate, even the Pacers guys. Even the Pacers guys like Obi Toppin and Jalen Smith a bit more than Hunter, but he's still in the mix. Like I said, I'm getting a crap ton of Bogdanovic. Mostly, if I had to guess, because he's only 4,400 and because he's guard and forward eligible, uh, he makes a lot of lines work. Again, he's viable, but I'm not going crazy here. He's 50. He's projected to be 52% owned on this slate, and I plan on not exceeding that by much. Sadiq Bey, I wish he was a little bit lower owned. I think he could have been a sneaky play on this slate, but instead he's just another obvious forward who will be in the mix. For me, he doesn't stand out too much, but again, he'll be in the mix. Um, Okongwu is one of the stronger center plays on this slate, mostly just due to his price tag and the form he's been in. He's just one of those guys I'm totally fine being over the field on, or at least around field weight exposure. So that's the range I want to be. I don't really want to be under, just because I like his price tag. He makes a lot of things work on this slate. Mr. Five said Bay and Johnson, best low guys to be over. Yeah, I like them both too. But for me, I'm not like planning on forcing the over on them. But if it happens naturally, I'm totally fine with it. So I don't think you're wrong there. Kenneth, what's up? Do you see 38 minutes for Mathurin again, or do you pivot elsewhere? Maybe a big night for Buddy. For the Pistons, guys, I'm really not trying to get too cute with them. I like some of the other spots on other teams a bit more. I don't love the matchup against the Bucks outside of the guards. To be honest, I think you can take a shot. And I know Mathurin, Hield, Brown, they're all guards, but I really want to focus on Halliburton here and just kind of have some exposure if it happens naturally with like Hield, Brown, and Mathurin. In regards to him seeing 38 minutes again, no. I don't see that happening. I expect him for that to kind of naturally regress a little bit and fall back to his norm of seeing like the upper 20s. B-Max said, how do you feel about Goga? Again, perfect timing. Perfect timing. Let's make sure. Did we talk about everyone here? We talked about everyone. Yeah. So a little bit lower than most on some of like the forwards in this game, but like I said, they're in the mix. On a 2-gamer, I like to have a couple stands and just let the DS do the rest of the thing there. All right. So the Magic. There are a few guys I do not want to forget about on this team. One being Paolo Banchero. Really good matchup against the Hawks. I think he's definitely going to be chalky today. That's not a sneaky play by any means, but there aren't sneaky plays on 2-gamers. For me, there's just guys I don't want to forget about. Paolo's one of those guys that it's very easy to go so high on Giannis and some of the other forwards on this slate that your exposure to Paolo can go lower, 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 lower. And for me, usually when that happens, that's when Paolo ends up breaking the slate. And I'm just like, how did I not have any on a 2-gamer? So again, just because I'm going over on Giannis and Halliburton, Paolo, I'm not going to be able to make a leverage play or a core play unless we get some insane value. But again, I want to be as close as possible to around field weight on him because this is another really good spot in game environment for him as well. Markelle Fultz is questionable. He's been out for a little bit. It's looking like he'll probably play today. So he's going to be in most people's core tonight. And I'll be honest, will probably be a core play for me as well because he's only 5,100 and he makes a lot work. And we're also never afraid to pick on this Atlanta Hawks defense from a guard standpoint. So a lot of guards I like tonight, but Markelle Fultz is one that just makes a lot happen. So I'm eating that chalk. If he misses this game, things do get a little bit more interesting. Anthony Black becomes viable on a 2-gamer. Jalen Suggs gets a really big boost along with Cole Anthony. So ideally, we'll get that news early. Ideally, he plays, so we don't have to worry about it. But worth mentioning for sure. Now, Franz Wagner and Mowags. It's a little bit of a situation where Mo Wagner in particular, I just feel like is under-owned for this spot. Ideally, not a situation I'm going to have to force. Hopefully, I'll get some exposure naturally. But if I don't, I'm willing to force the issue and make sure that he's in the mix of those forwards that I want exposure to tonight. Goga and Wagner have been splitting minutes, and that's the biggest issue. If I knew for sure Goga was going to start and play starter minutes, Goga would be a lock tonight for me and everybody else. The issue is it's been a true minute split. And so you can't feel as confident as you would want to in a starting big against the Hawks tonight. So if ownership stays the same, I want to make sure I have at least a little bit of exposure to Goga just in case he goes off. But it's not a situation I feel passionately about to force like I do some of the other guys on this slate. Jalen Suggs, man, he's just been too good to not play anymore. It's that simple. It's that simple. He's been in fantastic form, really, no matter what the situation's been. Fultz there, Fultz not there. Suggs is still overperforming. He has a really solid matchup tonight against the Hawks. I'm playing Suggs. It doesn't have to be a leverage play, but he's on my radar as a potential leverage play. So we'll see by the pre-lock show. Let's see. Obi Trice. Yeah, I have some interest in Obi. We talked about him on the Pacers, and he's kind of like my pivot off of Jalen Smith a little bit. But again, I'll have a good mix. I'll be around field weight on Smith, and then I'll be over the field on Obi Toppin tonight. Again, like a lot of these plays, I don't love the matchup, but he's just too low owned for the role he's playing. So 20% of him or around that won't crush me tonight if he doesn't come through like he usually doesn't. BMax said, I definitely like Suggs tonight. He should have 3 steals with 14 points, 3 assists, and 8 rebounds. That was very specific, but I hope that pans out. But I agree. Really good spot for him. I plan on being over the field. The Wagner bros, you are right, man. I feel like you just can't forget about them. Franz, I'm not as excited about. I didn't talk about him. Again, if I get exposure to him naturally in the domination station, I'm fine with it. But I don't foresee. I foresee me being under the field to him in comparison to some of the other guards on this slate or some of the other forwards on this slate. I just like a lot more due to their price and matchup and game environment, things of that sort. If he was lower owned, I would be more on board with him. But choosing between him and Paolo and the other forwards on this slate, I can't play everybody. So you have to pick your poison. BMac, once again, man, we're on the same page. It feels like a good spot for Banchero. Dave, appreciate you, man. Yeah, everyone, if you could hit the like, share, and subscribe button, it really does help out a lot. So appreciate the support there. BMax said, my core players are Giannis, Murray, Suggs, Banchero, leaving 4,300 for 3 spots. Yeah. The financial aspects of this slate are a little tough, but that's why you are going to have to mix in some of these really crappy plays. And we can talk through those. But yeah, outside of that, I don't really have interest in Black, Isaac, Ingles too much. But if I get like 1 to 5%, I'm not going to take them out or anything like that. On slates like this, sometimes you can get away with really crappy plays who don't even get you that many points, even if they can just kind of fit in, if they just make the rest of the lineup work. Not something I would do in single entry, but something that I'm more so open to on these kind of small slates. So when you just kind of look at this lower range, like we have quite a few options. And I think you're starting to see why I keep saying like, hey, I just want to make sure I have guys in the mix because I don't feel strongly about any of these guys to go over on. For me, my strategy is to go over on these more expensive guys that I trust who are in really good spots. But then I want to mix and match some of my forward exposure tonight to make sure that I have lines covering my bases just in case any of these guys get hot. Like Jalen Smith and Obi Toppin, they play pretty much the exact same minutes. Jalen Smith has a slightly higher points per minute number, but he's 4 times the ownership than Obi Toppin. The difference isn't that much to me, so I want to make sure I have exposure to both, but I'm over on a guy like Toppin who I think can be just as explosive. Okongwu, probably the best value on the slate so far. He'll probably be I don't want to say he'll be a core play, but he'll probably be close to it. And then, like I mentioned, we have Bay, Bogdanovich, Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder's the one that I really am focusing on here. I think he could be a little sneaky just because of how much he's playing. We've seen him not do a lot out there, but you need him in your mix. And like I said, if you just go all the way down, the only guy who's still feels okay is a guy like Beauchamp, just because of his eligibility, flexibility. You'll also get a little bit of Pat Connaughton tonight as well. For me, Connaughton's another guy I don't really want to go above 35% just because the minutes aren't really there, but I do like the game environment. So I'm fine being over the field on him, and I like having him in the mix, but again, don't want to go crazy on him. So yeah, interesting slate. A lot of ways to get different. We talked about quite a few of them. And so if you want to kind of see exactly what I'm doing on this slate and how we're using the DS tonight, we'll be live for the pre-lock show. I think probably around like 4:35. So we'll see. Let's look at the chat one last time before we bounce. What's up, Zolo? Good to see you. Banchero has been smashing with Fultz out. If he's back, he might not have the same impact. Yeah, his usage is definitely impacted, although Fultz isn't really the highest usage guy. It's pretty low. But I agree. I do like Banchero a bit more if Fultz is out, but I think he'll play today. It's more so the game environment against the Hawks and just the matchup that I think we can pick on with Banchero. Yeah, it's a difference. It's a difference. Beauchamp is only 3,300 and played 27 minutes last night. They have to see something in this kid, right? Or is it just because Giannis was ejected? I'll need to look a little bit closer at the rotation to see if it really was because of Giannis. I honestly don't know. But Beauchamp is just priced well, and I like his position flexibility. But again, he's not someone that you want to put, or he's not someone that I would feel great having in a single entry line. He's not someone that I want more than 30% of on this slate. He's not someone you should feel good about having in your lineups. He just makes shit work. Zola said Middleton was out, so they had minutes to share. Okay, nice. Yeah, so that explains some of the flexibility there. So I think it's an interesting one, guys. I think we have a pretty solid chance of getting different enough from what everyone else is doing to have a nice takedown. So look forward to seeing everyone later today on the pre-lock show. Good luck. Peace out.